Hello, friends. Welcome once again to the Perfect Bound Podcast. This is a podcast all about anything and everything comic books and comics related, brought to you by the Panel Jumper and Comics Dungeon. My name is Ben. With me, as always, is Cole Horn today.
Hey there.
Nicole Lamb.
Hello.
Chris Casso. Hello. How is everybody this evening?
Wonderful.
Wonderful.
Minty
Plucky.
fresh.
Conscious.
Conscious. That's a good one. That's a good one.
I look at you and I think, I don't know, furry. Furry. Burly. Burly.
Something we didn't mention, which happened yesterday as we record this, but a couple weeks ago now, is the 50th anniversary of Star Trek.
That's right.
Star Trek's first airing on CBS, and so happy birthday, Star Trek!
Happy birthday, Trek. Thank you for influencing us in great ways, and yeah.
You can now pre-order from ThinkGeek a Bluetooth communicator lapel pin that connects to your phone, and it makes a little tripping sound, so you can answer and receive calls on the way Trekkies do.
That seems kind of silly because a Bluetooth is essentially that device that Uhura had in her ear anyway. So why put it on the lapel?
So you can look cool.
We already have that device that was inspired by the show to begin with.
So nerds at cons can talk on their phone.
But the... Oh, gosh. All right.
Hey, friends. So, I was thinking about buying versus borrowing comics because I'm not really much of a comic collector. So I'm like, I don't know what to buy and what to just like borrow to read and give back. But how do you guys deal with that? Like, I mean, you two work in a comic book store, so you don't actually have to buy any comics if you don't want to. But how do you all, as a big comic book aficionados, make a decision to buy versus borrow?
Trial and error.
Yeah? After years and years of study.
Yeah. No, it's if I've read something, so from my standpoint of, I don't have to buy immediately. I can borrow some stuff and give it a quick read. But if I do get the feeling that I will read it again, then I know I want to buy that copy and hold on to it. And if I think I'm going to read it, sometime within another year or two, then that's for sure.
Do you often reread comics?
Yeah, I try to make it a point to read books that I love, like Preacher, like once a year.
Oh, really?
Because I always kind of get something more each time. It's kind of the same with like Dune, the movie Dune. The first time I ever saw that, I think I was 10. And I didn't know what the hell was going on. Yeah. And then I saw it again. I was like, I kind of got that. No, what's that? And you can do it again and again, and you finally I kind of mostly got that movie down. Probably need to watch another 10 times. But, so yeah, like Preacher did that for me because first couple times I read it, I didn't know who Bill Hicks was. And there's a whole sequence in there where he talks about seeing Bill Hicks perform live.
Really?
And Bill Hicks had a message, and he actually, roll that into one of his characters. So,
and if you don't know Bill Hicks, please look him up right now. He's a wonderful, sadly dead human.
I should check Preacher out because Bill Hicks is one of my favorites.
It's a quick sequence kind of in the middle of the whole run where he meets somebody who served in Vietnam with his father. And then they're talking about stuff in a bar, and at some point he mentions Bill Hicks. And so the first couple times I was like, he mentioned thing, move on. But finally I was like, what? There's a lot of books I feel that it's worth to have, and some of it's also for the sake of having reference material too.
Right.
But when it comes to taking a leap of faith, I'm less leapy these days.
Yeah.
I like to upgrade things that I know that I love. And I like to, if I have the single issue format, then I get the soft cover. Then if I see a hardcover, I sell the soft cover, get the hardcover. And if I see a monster book that I can murder people with, I will upgrade to that.
Yeah.
All right.
And series I love, I'll get the singles monthly so I can somewhat keep up with them.
Right.
And then if there's a beautiful hardcover, I'll get that. Like Lumberjanes is what I do with that. I guess I'm doing that with Princeless, so I do that sometimes. But
any other considerations go into you deciding to buy something? Like, if something comes in and you see it on the shelf, you're like, I have to have this. Bring it home with me.
I think before I worked here, a lot of it was based on recommendation because
Yeah.
the world of comics is so big and sometimes hard to navigate, mostly hard to navigate, that, just throw a few things at the wall, like I like this, that, and the other thing, and then it would be like, pshing, here's the comics you want to read. And then from there, get an idea of either writers or artists that I really like. Like, I will follow J.H. Williams III anywhere. I even have the Sandman stuff. I didn't read the Sandman stuff, but I bought it with my monies because it was him. I don't care about Sandman though.
He's
so
the
some
artist?
things will, he's the artist. As sometimes I will just follow just blindly on that. If it's gay and glittery, I'll probably buy it. You know, so I kind of know my shticks as well.
Yeah. I'm very much the same way.
And he knows my glitter and gay, so he'll throw that at me sometimes too.
Aesthetics go a long way, and if it's a book of beautiful artwork that matches other books of artwork I have, then it's going on the shelf.
Cool.
And there have been things that I apparently have an autopilot that doesn't suck, because there have been things that arrived at the store and I see it on the invoice a week ahead. I'm like, why did I order 10 copies of this $30 hardcover? And then it comes in, I'm like, oh, okay. I didn't know what you were, but apparently something worked in there. And I got a pretty cool book now. So yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
What about you, Cole? How do you make that distinction?
For a while there, I was a really good boy. I was being very conservative about, after collecting for how many decades, whittling my monthly titles down to like 5. And then getting trades from the library and, not. And then I started doing this web series, and then I started doing this podcast, and then my impulse control has just gone into the crapper.
Maybe not as bad as maybe like years ago, right?
Okay, well, hold on, because I got a really great example of
good.
poor impulse control that I exercised just within the last week and a half. Researching the episode of the Ninja Turtles that we're going to be doing here real soon for the live show, I reread all the IDW books in the hardbound. I got those from the library, but, I kept reading all these really great things about the Batman Ninja Turtles crossover, and my goodness, the first issue is already up to like $16-18 on eBay, and I'm like, I didn't even bother to look when the collected edition was coming out. I just I can't help myself, and I bought it. And I didn't bother to look at the fact that the second issue went out of print probably even faster, and the second issue is now more valuable than the trade collected edition, which came out the same week that I bought the first issue and the rest of the lot. So I just spent like $35 on individual issues when I could have bought the hardbound edition for 3/4 of that. Wow. So this is something I'm acknowledging.
Sometimes you got to phone a friend, man.
Yeah.
Who has access to the Diamond website, a.k.a. me.
I just, I was on my phone. I was at work. The urge came over me. I don't have a sponsor.
I'm your sponsor is what I'm saying. I'm your sponsor.
Piggybacking onto that.
Me and Galactus are here for you, man. The life bringer.
But at the same time, I do... I still like to collect.
Yeah. It's nice seeing those things on your shelf.
But also I like to collect individual issues.
Yeah.
And I was bagging up comics this weekend, and I was actually bagging up and boxing 2 years worth of comics that have, sorting them and bagging them, and I inevitably find issues that I'm missing. How that happens?
I know, right? It's magical.
And I'll go, but also I will pick up older comics, and I'm like, and I had Dead World from Caliber Comics back in the 80s, and this is the comic book that really, if you want to argue about it, inspired Kirkman to write Walking Dead. But actually it's really just an extension of the story ideas that Romero gave us long ago, and it had a window of time where it was a really amazing independent comic book, and I'm like, they're not worth a lot.
No,
they have who's doing the artwork? But I'm like, I want to collect all those. Mm-hmm. I want to collect all those. I never did that back in the day. They're not expensive, but it's going to add up. But I'm just really kind of OCD.
Well, we're all collectors in that way.
You mentioned bagging and boarding too.
Yeah.
Like, am I the only one that if you're doing your personal collection, there's actually something kind of therapeutic about doing that.
Oh yeah.
I can see that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's tedious and it will take me like half a day, even if I don't have a lot of stuff. But I love just sitting and having like all my boxes out and getting the bags and boards and like looking through the stuff. And
I hate doing it in the store, but
but like
Do you
your
feel
own.
dirty? Do you
your
feel
own
dirty when
collection.
someone's watching you do that?
No,
I just don't want to do it. No. But
Don't look at me. I'm cooking and boarding.
This is personal business.
because I've just started organizing some stuff, looking to kill certain things, and there's certain things that I keep too. That are like there is negative value to it. Like I have number 1 of the Defenders of Dynamo City, and no one knows what that book is, but it's it is the first book I bought on a stand by myself, and it has a monkey throwing banana bombs at people.
Done. Yeah.
Yeah. But so, stuff like that I keep, certain runs of like, I love this run of Hour Man. I love this run of Resurrection Man, stuff like that. So, yeah, those nostalgia plays a heavy factor in
Yeah, I
what
can imagine.
stays and what doesn't stay.
Yeah.
And well, see, one of the evil things that you did to me in the course of our friendship was to remind me that it's probably a good idea, as he steeples his fingers together, to rebag and board things and because your comic books look nicer when you put them in so I put them in via your recommendation. I put them in Silver Age bags and board them, and they look all mint and crispy, and I do that frequently. I'll pick my favorite comic books, dig them out, take up. I am
every 10
filling.
years.
Are you boarding your comics now?
Yeah.
Wow.
The ones I think are really special.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
He's
But
usually only
it's-
bags them.
But he did this to me. It's
Yeah.
all his fault.
Yeah, he did it to all of us, okay? Come on. No, I'm just kidding.
We need to form like a support group or something.
The Chris Casso's fault.
He's getting
group.
tweedly
No.
with his facial
I'm
hair.
making people take care of their things. How terrible.
Another aspect of, whether you borrow it or not, we have book clubs here, and some
Yeah.
people will choose to go to the library. Some will buy it, but I mean, if you have a time factor on like when you want to try to read something, the lines can get really long at the library.
Right.
And if you're just really, really curious, sometimes it's just better to just grab it up. And also, who knows about print runs and all these
Right.
kinds of things? Like, is it a mainstream title? Is it an indie title? Is it somewhere in between? That is a factor in when I'm going to buy something. I'm like the Black Monday Murders single issue. I flat out bought that, even though I haven't read it yet, and I don't know if I like it. I probably will, but just because I'm like, I don't know if this is going to stay in print.
Never
and
go
it
home.
didn't.
Never go home.
Oh,
I
we
was
can
like-
never go home.
Yeah,
That's from Black Mass.
I read a review of it on
Yeah.
IO9. You guys had already talked about it. I was dialed out apparently, and I read a review of it, and I was like, I need to have this comic book. I need to have
Right.
it now, and I need to have all first prints.
Yeah, and that's
I
what I
did
learned
that
about
thing.
Black
Yeah,
Mask.
yeah.
Like, if you're interested, get them in singles,
Yeah.
like right away.
I went right on eBay and I
Yeah.
got them.
This is also a good example of it doesn't hurt to find a comic book store where you can have a conversation with
Yeah.
people and get a feel of if it's worth it or not. Because the Black Monday Killers, there were a couple people that were kind of like on the fence, and after I'd read it, I just basically like shoved it in their face. I'm like, no, there's no fence. But
Just get it. Yeah,
over
that's
the-
another
print
thing.
now.
I mean,
You're over the fence now.
the recommendation thing can go a long way. Do you have a
Right.
friend who's like, you would really dig this? Then, you either borrow it from them or you go out and buy it based on the recommendation.
Yeah.
For me right now, with Ben and I producing the panel jumper, one of the joys of this process is that I kind of dig immersing myself in whatever I'm looking into. And he's the victim of that process because I will hand him a 16-page of steaming poop. And then
But I'm not allowed to call it steaming poop.
no, you are
No.
not. But that is unfortunately the end result of my enthusiasm for immersing myself into, whatever. So I was rereading Ninja Turtles for the first time in decades and decades and having a ball with them. But I was also rereading all the Frank Miller Daredevils and looking at them in the context of what the TV show looks like now. And I'm like, but I tell you what, here's the thing. I am not going to go dig up those individual issues out of my box.
Wait.
I'm not going to do that.
That actually brings me to my next question for y'all. So you have all these collections, right? How do you determine what you keep in a box and what you want to display proudly on your shelf? Is it all basically just, I think I'm going to read this again, so I'm not going to put it away in a box? Or are there titles where you're like, yes, I want people, when they come over to my house, I want them to see that I have this? Is there anything that you own?
It's a little different because, like, you have like the trade paperback books, which can have some nice shelf appeal, which you're going to put anyway. Single issues are a little trickier because you bag and board them, you put them in a box. You don't generally like display them out. But for us, like in my house, we'll have, let's say, the Spider-Gwen figure that came out for the Marvel Legends line by Hasbro, and I'll put the Edge of Spider-Verse Spider-Gwen issue that I have next to it and display it, and we'll have a little thematic thing going on.
Yeah.
I currently have a Batwoman section on my shelf where I have all the statues and little figures that I have thus far of Batwoman, and I put out one of the really cool Detective Comics issues. So, and those rotate out. So with singles, that will happen.
Whereas my home environment is the antithesis to that type of delicate interior design.
You have a lot of great display.
No, right now, I'm kind of getting to the point where it's like, I don't know if I can have friends come over and play anymore.
Not until you clean your room.
Over here, welcome back, Carter style.
What's the matter, baby? What?
Ooh.
Mr. Carter.
Yo, you want to come over and play?
Yeah.
Oh, it's just, well, I'm running out of room, and I just kind of like, and I'm in a place right now where it's like, I don't want to purge. I can't think of anything I want to purge. So.
Yeah, I'm thinking of purging other items besides comics so I can fit more comics.
You are
but
not getting rid
go.
of your horror high dolls. That's not going to happen.
No, that's not.
I've committed too much.
No, I have like
And it's just
70
you
dolls, honey.
Putting that 70 doll.
It's been a
collection
community
together. And
event.
when are those kids going to graduate anyway?
Never. Fashion dolls never age. Go ahead.
So I basically have forced a rule in my own setup that if it cannot go onto a shelf, I shouldn't have it. As far as trade paperbacks, graphic novels, hardcovers.
Right.
And because there's really no point. Like the point of those is having accessibility and having them available, and also for the display aspect. So what that requires sometimes is if something is and it can't fit, something else must die.
Yeah.
And that's I'm in a constant purge cycle of killing to make more room.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the Indiana Jones thing, and it's like if I gotta replace the idol with something of equal weight.
Yeah.
Like if I'm going to buy something big, something must go away.
Well, you really honor your living space as an ecosystem, which is something I quit doing a long time ago. You believe in nature red in tooth and claw, and I think I'm lazy.
I actually have the same sort of thing.
You are
I have
not
limited
lazy.
shelf space, and
No, sir.
I can't.
need to come over.
Physically
It's
can't
getting-
fit more
it's getting
shelves in my
dangerous.
apartment. So, like, when this shelf is
Things
full,
can fall on you.
something else has to leave.
I've rearranged so many times for the most amount of shelf space possible, including things that should not be considered shelves becoming shelves.
There you go.
So
Like next to the TV on the TV stand.
I will fight for any way to create that space before I have to kill book. But sometimes book must die.
Is print life a consideration? Because for where trades and graphic novels are concerned, I hold on to a lot of stuff solely because I know it's out of print.
Yes.
And I look at my shelves and I go. In fact, I had a bit of a panic when I was putting the research stuff together for one of our previous episodes because I'm like, do I even have that anymore? And if I don't have it anymore, what happened? And I got really kind of Twitter-pated about it, like because I know that's out of print and I know it's super duper expensive to try to replace it.
Yeah, I try to be very careful.
And did I
about
loan it
that.
to Nicole?
And then she never gave it back.
I have my baseball card shelves.
Yes.
And it's one of these like heavy metal garage units that's got this like the steel beams on either side. And I'm almost out of room. I've been very good. I haven't bought baseball
amazes
cards
me,
from
'cause
eBay.
Because that tells me that you have a mightier collection than I anticipated.
It's grown pretty large
Yeah.
for being such small things.
Yes.
They take up a lot of room and are super heavy.
A lot of nights of scotch on eBay.
Yeah, no.
Recently, is that what?
I love that
Fortunately, I've come to an end.
Know that this is the thing that Ben does. It's like, oh,
I almost
you're
want it to be
human.
like Brandy, and you're like one finger clicking the buy button, one with the snifter.
I do
you
need a
know?
breathalyzer for
He's in a
eBay.
smoking jacket. And, yeah.
But here's the thing, and it's all about the display. So I have these
Yeah.
unopened boxes of like cards that aren't worth anything, right? So what do I care? But I'm like, oh, I want to open these cards, but I also like because the cards aren't. It's better to open the boxes than it is to leave the cards because the gum is in there and it's ruining the cards. And and they're bending in weird ways. So I'm like, I want to open the boxes, but I like seeing the unopened boxes on the shelf. And so my lady friend was like, well, why don't you just open the cards and leave the boxes? And I'm like, that's different. The cards have to be in there.
I was gonna say, do you want me to craft you something so it looks very authentic, like there's cards still
just
in there?
like put something in there to keep the box from collapsing upon itself.
Exactly.
You need to buy a shrink wrap machine.
I do. Oh my God.
See, there you go.
Anyway, so
Not the same woman.
also, not the same. Also on my shelves are I have a couple things where like I went through this period of like buying all the books of NPR monologists. So I have all of David Sedaris, I have all of like Sarah Vowell's books, David Rakoff, all these people that I heard on NPR who I'm like, oh, maybe I'm a good Seattle liberal. I should probably have these on my bookshelf. And sometimes it might seem kind of pretentious and
Only if you haven't read them.
but I've read all of one. But anyway,
Okay, then that is pretentious.
well, there was one Sarah Vowell book I couldn't quite get through, but
But he tried.
I want to know, are there any, and I'm doing air quotes here, pretentious comics? Like, are there any comics there where you see someone reading that and
what
you're
does that mean to you?
it means that person is only reading that comic because that comic is a status symbol.
Oh.
I think that it comes down to who that person is.
Okay.
And not the books that should be judged.
Well, yeah. What's the subculture that's perpetuating?
Lest you be judged.
Because the thing is,
That-
like, so for an example, let's say you went and you met somebody who's just like, Batman, I love Batman. I'm the biggest Batman fan ever. And you go to their shelf and they have Dark Knight Returns, Year One, and Killing Joke. And that's like it. And it's
Yeah.
just kind of like,
Which I've seen before, yeah.
you know, but and that's the thing though. It's like I've seen other collections where it's just like you have Kia Asayama's Batman graphic novel that no one knows exists, or you know, I almost let that go. But or you know, you got Batman the Chalice, you got what you know, things that only saw like one print run and disappeared.
Yeah,
and it's just like that person actually probably does want to grab everything of Batman.
They
and
are
read
devoted.
everything. They're devoted.
Well, there's
You
like
know.
in the goth scene, the Sandman comics. If you don't read comics, you probably still have Sandman on your shelf.
Is it?
I've dated a couple goths in my day. I'm a dabbler of the gothic gothic world, but not goth enough to pass.
Yeah. You don't wear enough black.
Yeah, most of my outfits.
Oh,
black,
sidebar to
whatever.
this. If you want to have a good
know.
chuckle, go to gothsinhotweather.com. It's a bunch
Ooh.
of goths maintaining their aesthetic in the extreme heat. It's awesome.
I appreciate that actually. But yeah, I
Writing
mean,
that
I
down.
think
Anyway.
that would be one of those things that goth is pretentious in general. That's why I don't fit in the crowd. I'm not gothier than thou or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, that would be one I would consider in that.
I didn't realize why I haven't
situation.
read it, but I didn't realize it was big in the goth community. Sandman.
Yeah, I mean Neil Gaiman is a goth, isn't he? Pretty much.
Well, yeah, but he's a charming goth, you know.
Well, I'm not saying it as a negative. Because there are many goths, but you
Yes.
know, as far as the pretentious level,
There are many faces of the
the
goth.
level, the pretentious level that you get to of the goth.
No,
can
but
get
that's
there.
a really, really good point. Is that books that sort of like create an aura of cool about you. You know, Alan Moore was like that. You know, if you were hip, you know, you may not have been into comics, but you read Alan Moore.
Yeah.
Well, and I would think that certain books like the works of Daniel Klaus or
Right, yeah, or
half of
Adrian
anything Fantagraphics
Tomine.
published.
Yeah,
that
Chris Ware.
it just kind of depends because I have so many customers that have come in and they're like, I only read that. You know, it's just like some of them I think do only read that because that's just their jam, but some of them I think buy it because they think that's a good jam to present.
Right.
And like, there's just some books that feel a little bit more like that because they're more considered art or literature than a superhero comic. I mean, we have a gentleman who visits from time to time, and he's just like, I just can't do the superhero stuff. Blah, blah, blah. And then he kind of looked. He was just like, do you guys read them? And like the owner and I were just like, yeah. Nothing wrong with that, you know. And so he was, you know, trying to pass judgment or trying to like figure something out between us there, and it's just sort of like, yeah, you know, I mean, any genre is a genre. one's not necessarily better than the other. Like what you like. But you could tell some people just kind of get harder on some genres.
Yeah.
And then they want to promote certain ways that makes them look cool.
Yeah.
You know.
By also playing down all the other stuff.
Right.
So, you know, I guess at that point it really can be subjective. And then it can also invade subcultures as well. Like, you know.
Yeah, it's funny because I was just having this conversation earlier with a friend of mine about the definition of being a hipster. And to me, that definition was a hipster is someone who's defined by the media that they consume. And so I'm wondering, like, if there are like hipster comics. You know,
Yeah.
like if you saw someone who, you know, they've got the waxed mustache and their black rim glasses, smoking a pipe. You know, standing in the
vape?
school courtyard.
Do they vape now?
They
I don't
probably
know.
vape.
I
Oh my
don't know.
god!
Well, you know, I would argue that any book that has inspired a successful a film or television series, like I was looking at Walking Dead, you know, that was a moderate seller when it came out, but then within the first season of the show, the first issue of that comic book shot up to over $1,500, and it was a limited print run. But you know, they also had reprinted them, so there was like this cool factor of being, and I could not believe that any comic book collector in the main could afford to buy a $1,500 copy of Walking Dead #1, but someone else who came in as part of the bandwagon with who's in a different income. Am I making up stories? Maybe I'm just making up stories from different income bracket. You know, that would make, because that would make them hip. They were buying their cool. Does that make sense?
We've had some people who were bragging about, you know, selling their Walking Dead #1s. They had multiple
Yeah, well, I
copies
did
and
that,
that sort of thing.
but I only had one copy.
But you immediately lamented it, so
We get a lot of back issue braggarts too.
Yeah.
So, you know,
Yeah.
it's a
so
thing.
it happens all over the
Okay,
place.
all right. That's a
Yeah.
toughie with comics. It's a
Yeah.
toughie with comics. I mean, I could totally see how, you know, something in some other form of literature, like the guy that you know, that's drug around James Joyce's Ulysses for like 5 years and only read, you know, 10 pages of it because having that book on his person is going to make him look cool. You know, that's more along the lines, I think, of what you're talking about. But I don't know if comics, it's a toughie. It's a toughie.
All right. Well, let's ruminate on that in our own private time. But let's move on to book report, everybody, and let's start with Chris. What do you want to tell us about?
I just picked up Frank Cho's Skyborn from Boom Studios. It's a 5-issue miniseries that he is writing and drawing, created, written, and illustrated by Frank Cho. Colored by Marcel Meniz and lettered by Ed Dukeshire.
Not Ed Dukeshire.
Shia.
It's I am a fan of Frank.
The Bostonian Bookshires.
Is that a thing? I don't understand what you guys are doing.
We are just riffing.
You
Okay.
just like the name Dukeshire. Perhaps he works with Bonvillain. Anyway.
Oh, you mean Harvey Bondelin?
Yes. So I do like Frank Cho. I think he can be a very good storyteller. Sometimes I think his art is stronger than his writing. This is a case where there's not enough to quite figure out exactly where he's going with it, but it is engaging. It's kind of a possibly supernatural thriller. He gives you a lot of stuff that just makes you curious what's going to happen next. So in that respect, he's really, really good at bringing a reader in. And his figures are great as usual. He draws some interesting different types of, well, man, there's only one woman. But and it's pretty violent. He does do some things that annoy me, where he's pretty sparse with some of his paneling, and you kind of get some what I consider wasted space, but I think he considered interesting design elements. They bring in Excalibur, and I think Merlin just popped up. But again, there's just not too much because it's focused more on the action. It's a brisk read. It doesn't feel like a ripoff, but it is a quick read, and I think a lot of Boom things I think read better as a trade. I think this will be one of those things.
Now, is he off Totally Awesome Hulk, or is he?
Yeah.
Is he? Okay,
Yeah,
I
he
couldn't
doesn't stay
remember.
on that stuff very long.
He doesn't stay on anything too long. So yeah, it's worth noting that his main field protagonist once again looks like Linda Carter, or like Brandy from Liberty Meadows, or every other woman he's ever drawn. She looks great, but yeah. So it's what is it, $3.99? Yeah, it's an interesting read. If you like Frank Cho, you will like this. I think there's probably going to be a dragon at some point.
Ooh. All right. Skyborn by Frank Cho. Thanks, Chris. Nicole, what do you want to tell us about?
I read Generation Zero, which is a new title from Valiant Publishing or Valiant Entertainment. It is written by Fred Van Lente, art by Francis Portela, color art. That's just another way for saying colorist. Is Andrew Dahlhaus? I want to say Dahlhaus.
So we got Bond Villain and Dollhouse.
Yes, our team is shaping up nicely. So this is a team book. The Generation Zero are a team of Zayats, which is another word for like mutants or superheroes, superhumans or metahumans or whatever. And they're people they're born with potential incredible abilities. So it gives you this spread of different characters. They're all teenagers or kids. And they've escaped. They were created as like weapons of war, and they escaped and decided to do their own thing and be heroes. So it focuses on this one character, Keisha, and she's kind of a gothy girl. She finds like the love of her life, and she's surprised because he drives his car into a tree and dies, and she's just like, wait, what? And she surprisingly takes it very well, but then I guess has a breakdown later. So the whole setup actually is where a bunch of kids can try to get in contact with Generation Zero and ask them for help, and they might get picked, and I don't know. What else should I add to this?
And she's trying to contact them because she thinks it's fishy that her boyfriend died by means that he never would die.
That's what I was missing. I was like, I am missing something. We are at the end of the night here. So anyway, she goes to a party and she ends up meeting up with some kids, and some Slendermen show up or something. Some colonial Slendermen. So there's certainly something fishy happening. And I thought the setup of this was really interesting. The art was really, really good. I liked Portela as an artist, and so I hope that him and Fred Van Lente are just going to stay consistently on the title. And yeah.
Did you like his voice for the generation?
Yeah,
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I mean, I don't get too much of a feeling of who they are exactly. They sort of show up at the end there.
I mentioned that because I read this as well, and I brought it up to Nicole and a coworker of ours that I just realized that virtually every book about, because this is Gen 13, this is Teen Titans, every book about teen generation is always written by the generation that precedes it. And how is that translated? Because Gen 13 was, that's going to be Jim Lee co-creating along with Brandon Choi and a few other guys. They were too old to be considered that generation. There's never been a teen book written by the generation to represent it.
Yeah, that's a toughie.
The only one actually would be Legion of Superheroes by Jim Shooter, because that boy started working in comics when he was 13.
That's right.
Wow.
He was working legally.
Yep.
Well, and then I can't really speak to that because I'm not of this generation.
Right.
I'm 33 years old. I'm not in high school anymore. But when I was in high school, I could relate to Keisha as far as just being kind of an other sort of alternative girl, gothy, whatever. I didn't find the love of my life, who was extremely attractive in high school. That happened way later, but
Alrighty.
So does this fit? How does it fit into the rest of the Valiant universe? Is it interconnected?
Because Psyops are what Harbinger and Faith are.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
this is Gen 13 for their
Got it.
their Teen Titans.
Well, what I'm
Right.
I've been sporadically picking up Valiant trades of the more recent Valiants, but I've also been reading some older ones from the library, thanks to reading Faith. And one of the Faith miniseries, I have not read any of the new ongoing series yet. But one of the things that really started to concern me about Valiant, and what did I read? Archer and Armstrong, the first two Harbinger books. Can't think of what else. Enjoyed them, but they're really white. Those stories are really white, and they're written by white people. And I didn't see a lot of people of color in any of these stories. And that was and I was trying to get and you guys please argue with me. But I was looking at the rest of the Valiant universe. Yes, we're kind at this table.
Sure.
But looking at this, I'm seeing more people of color, which pleases me.
I would say they don't have a lot of people of color necessarily. That is still
the Divinity character is probably one of their bigger examples. So they could definitely work more on that.
Yeah,
so
for
you're
sure.
in agreement with me
For
on this
sure.
one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool. All right. Generation Zero from Valiant. Thanks, Nicole. And Cole Hornaday, what do you want to tell us about?
I picked up. This is it's called The Man Thing by Steve Gerber Complete Collection. This is Volume 1. It came out about a year ago. Volume 2, I think, is going to be hitting the stores in November. So this is a collection. This is not one of those like Marvel Essential editions that's a black and white phone book edition. This is a nicely it's a paperback, nicely reproduced, slick paper color reprints of not just actually. This is it's kind of misleading because this first volume is not just Steve Gerber's stories. It's everything.
Yeah.
It's his appearances. It's Man Thing's first appearance in Creatures on the Loose or whatever it is. Savage Tales and Adventure into Fear. Gerber's stories don't start until maybe about a quarter of the way into the book.
And you have to be careful with these collections because at a certain point they move on from Steve Gerber. They do different things.
Yeah.
Like they did that with the Howard the Duck too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you're right, but going into that, I knew that Gerber had only written like the first 24 issues of Howard, so I was not surprised. This actually surprised me. I'm totally cool with it because I've never read a lot of these Man Thing stories, but I've read about them for a long time. Case in point was, Gerber was just a nutburger, and he did more nutburgery things than just Howard, and he just went kind of all bat poop when he got his hands on Man Thing. And case in point is this story in Adventure into Fear, number 17, where he basically recreates Superman in the guise of a character called Wondar. And Wondar and DC got. Do you remember it?
I remember
the
Wondar.
The Wondar story. And DC. They tried to threaten a lawsuit, but it was it's such an obvious ripoff of Superman done satirically, but maybe
parody.
Not. Because you kind of, I read it. I'm like, oh, well, no wonder they were upset about this story because Wondar is Superman. He gets his origin is the ending of Krypton, but the distinction is that he doesn't escape. His spaceship crashes in the swamp, and he doesn't escape the capsule as a baby. In fact, he's stuck in there into adulthood until Swamp Thing knocks over the rocket ship, and he comes out, and he's he sees it's not Swamp Thing, excuse me, Man Thing, and he's like, Mommy, so then it gets really super weird.
Oh my God.
But I'm like, this is so fun. I'm thoroughly digging this collection. It is very much a product of its time. But having done the research I did for the Howard the Duck episode that we produced, I'm thoroughly enjoying having an opportunity to read the rest of these. Unfortunately, this collection is not cheap. It is dense. It is exhaustive, but it's close to $40 for this trade.
Wow.
And
Marvel books are pretty expensive.
yeah, I got this one used in very nice condition for about half that, but I don't know that I would have paid for full price on the newsstand or in the bookstore. But I got to tell you, I am thoroughly enjoying it. It's there are artists like Mike Plug and people like that, and all of Gerber's weird characters like the Fool Killer and Howard. It's got all the original Howard's appearances and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm having a good time with it.
All right. Cool. Man-Thing
Man
collection.
Thing by Steve Gerber, The Collection, Volume 1.
The Collection Volume 1.
Steve Derberger.
Man Thing
Fat Poop
by
Burger?
Steve Gerber, The Collection, Volume 1. Yeah, the editor on this one needed to be spanked.
All right. So thanks, Cole. And that is Book Report, and that's our show. And coming up is quiz time. But before we go, I want to tell you that the Perfect Bound podcast is brought to you by The Panel Jumper. See everything the Cole Hornaday and I do at thepaneljumper.com. And by Comics Dungeon here at 319 Northeast 45th Street in beautiful downtown Wallingford, or 24 hours a day, 7 days a week at comicsdungeon.com. You can also subscribe to us on iTunes or at perfectboundpodcast.com. Yeah, or go to paneljumper.com. It's all on one. It's all on my website.
Visit us on Facebook. Come and like us.
Like us on Facebook. Like the Comics Dungeon on Facebook as well. And as we previously said, Cole puts a lot of comic geek links on the Panel Jumpers Facebook page,
Barely. It's Geeky Links.
which is where I get most of my comic book news. And on the page that I
Made
created. Anyway, leave us a review on iTunes if you want. Send us an email, perfectboundpodcast@gmail.com. But now everybody get your quiz hats on. It's quiz time.
Yay.
And this week the questions come to us from Mr. Chris Cassell. Lay it on us.
This is kind of a sequel to a previous theme of mine because I had just tossed into the Phantom Zone. We also talked about Batman tossing thing into the Batcave. So this one is just toss it on the moon. I'm a fan of just people leaving their garbage around. So, on one of the many, many, many occasions that the Justice League Watchtower base on the moon was attacked, a chunk of their bathroom was blown off and the remains sit mostly intact. In that bathroom, there's a bit of graffiti tagged in that says, "Tommy was here." Who is this Tommy? It's weedy. I'm just trying to teach things about the moon.
Who is Tommy? Who's Tommy? Now I know what that is. So who's Tommy?
Tommy, can you hear me? Oh, dude, you got me. I don't know.
Tommy Monahan, the hitman.
Oh, jeez. That's
All
right.
right.
The moon makes for a good neutral meeting place, as seen on the occasion of Dr. Doom meeting a famous monster to negotiate a non-aggression pact at the lunar rover site. Who is the famous monster?
Bing, bang, boom.
Dracula.
On the moon?
Dracula and Dr. Doom on the moon. They actually
So weird.
they made a poster image of that for comics, and they were just like, Dracula and Dr. Doom on the moon. You should read this book.
When was that story?
Captain Britain and M13.
Oh, that's weird.
If you're not careful, you might accidentally step on a talking skull named Hooker, still screaming obscenities on the lunar surface. Hooker was punted there by Mitchell Shelley, also known as the unusual superhero named...
He's got a great kick. I'll give him that.
Not the Sportsmaster.
Resurrection Man.
Oh, that was Resurrection Man. See, you and I part ways on that series. You loved it. I thought it was...
The original series.
Yes.
Yeah. Anyway, Justice League aren't the only ones who have made a base on the moon to see it destroyed. The Silver Age B-list villain turned ancient demon of vengeance saw his moon citadel collapse in a 90s crossover event called The Darkness Within. Who is this villain?
Come on, dude, you're the only one.
I know.
Actually,
you and so in the weeds
Chris
on
told
this.
me all of these things. I think,
Okay, then why aren't
earlier,
you
and I just
helping?
forgot.
Why aren't you helping? You
'Cause
could have
my
been coaching
brain
me the
is
whole long.
sleeping right
Okay,
now.
I'm sorry.
It's gone into sleep mode.
Yes.
Eclipso.
Of course it is. Of
Yeah.
course it is. With this little purple crystal gem.
And it's all moon-based stuff.
That's right.
Last one.
All right.
The blue area of the moon sees a lot of action.
Yes, it
from
does.
The likes of the X-Men, the Inhumans,
People die there.
the Inhumans, the Watcher, and more. But who originally built it?
Who built
The Inhumans.
No.
The Kree.
Because
I think I actually read this once, but I don't remember who it is. But it
The
sounds
blue area of the
familiar.
moon.
The Skrulls built it over 1 million years
Wow.
ago, while
Oh.
the Kree built the Blue City, which is often seen in the ruins
Okay.
that everybody fights on.
Yes.
And the Kotati built a complex yet subtle ecosystem.
All right, I was wrong. I did not read that
Wow.
because that all sounded foreign to me.
Oh, you
Wait,
said
just say-
Kotati.
Yes, that's
Kotati.
Kotati.
It's the Kotati.
Alrighty, well, that's thank you very much, Chris. That
We learned so much
we did
tonight.
learn a lot.
We did.
Good Kotati to you too.
We learned so much, and I think we grew a little bit as well. So thank you for listening.
Everybody.
Happy Kotati. We'll see you next week.
Happy Kotati.